Welcome back to Today on Bay TV. I'm Gaynor Morgan and I'm joined now by horticulturalist Neil Barry and Richard Beale, whom we know so well from the Swansea Ramblers. Well, you're both very green, aren't you? And you're both indulging in pastimes that I think are these days said to be good for our mental health and well-being, aren't they? Being out in the open air.
Oh, it is. It's great for your well-being, both physical and mental, really. And even though you might spend the day out working hard in a garden, and physically you can be really tired, but mentally you can feel energized and just so much better. Or even half an hour, if you've got something on your mind, just indulging yourself in a bit of weeding or cutting the lawn or whatever it is, and you can just focus on that. And
you could have taken this from Richard Beale's Handbook for Ramblers.
Well, it turns out he's a member of Swansea Ramblers as well. We haven't met until today, but chatting now, just now, yeah.
But that's the same story that you're saying to us such a lot about the Ramblers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, we find that people, particularly people who live on their own, to go out walking, they chat to other people, they make new friends, and it's relaxing. Yeah, OK, the weather sometimes can be poor, but other times it's great, and people really enjoy it.
And while few of us are fortunate enough to be able to spend our whole working lives out in the open air, we can all do a little bit, can't we? Even if you're in a flat, you can have a window box.
You can indeed, yeah. Sort of, there's allotments and there's gardening clubs and things like that. So it's a bit like what Richard was saying. It can be quite a social activity as well. Around Swansea, we're very lucky. We've got lots of allotment societies and gardening clubs, and people can go along and indulge their passion there, even if they don't have a space of ground. But I think what Richard was saying as well about walking, that the conversation kind of flows naturally because you've got something in common that you're talking about, because people might say, oh, I won't know anybody and what will we talk about and things. But
I think from your accent, you come from a country originally where conversation flows naturally, yes?
It is indeed. I'm from Cork, and where the Blarney Stone is.
I kissed the Blarney Stone, but I haven't got quite your lilt. So what brought you to Wales?
Wales, yes. Well, originally I moved from Ireland to London and spent many years as a corporate slave in London, and then in my early 40s, which was about 15 years ago, I had my bit of midlife crisis and decided, do I really want to be doing this? I was in a very good job and all that, but I thought to myself, no, I want to get back to the land, really. So I had a wonderful opportunity of going to Kew Gardens on a traineeship for 3 years. And during that time, I had worked with some world-renowned experts, and also went to college at the same time to get some qualifications. And during that time, I came across some really inspiring lecturers who inspired me and motivated me greatly. So I thought, if I can pass on some of that passion and enthusiasm to people, great.
You're a freelance horticulturalist.
Yes, So it's all to do with education of various sorts. So I teach at the National Botanic Garden of Wales, and I run courses for the Royal Horticultural Society, both locally and in England as well. And then I'm also involved in what's called the Community Voice Green Spaces project, which is a lottery-funded project in Swansea about encouraging local communities to make as much use as possible of their green spaces.
And how is that going? That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's going really well. And we've brought different communities together. One of the most exciting ones, we've been working with the African Community Centre, and they've got a project with refugees and asylum seekers, and we've got an allotment in Swansea where they come along once a week to, it's growing food obviously is the main objective, but it's more about, a social activity as well, of bringing people out, doing something, and then within that area, some local people have also started volunteering. So again, it's sort of breaking down barriers, and creating, better community cohesion. But also for
refugees and asylum seekers, it's a way of rooting them and giving something a purpose.
It is indeed, and they've got fascinating stories. And when you hear their stories on a one-to-one basis, you often hear various stereotypes in the media and so on. But when you hear individual stories of, what they've been through and so on, it's really fascinating. But having the gardening as a common bond, a bit like the walking as well, really. You've got something a reason to turn up. It's not just, come along and talk to us. It's actually doing something as well as you go along.
So many common themes running through this. Because, Richard, you're also about the bonding nature of rambling and walking together.
Yeah, well, it's definitely true. I mean, I've said this before, but I've been a member of Swansea Ramblers for 5.5 years, and I probably know about 100 people now that I didn't know before. Some of them I obviously know better than others, but we go out, and every time there's people I know, sometimes there are people that I haven't met before. And perhaps I could move on to one of the walks we did recently at
I was just
Mynydd
going to ask you
Myddfai.
where you've been lately.
Yeah, Mynydd Myddfai is north of the Carmarthen Vans, near the Usk Reservoir. And the walk we do around there, we visit the site of some Roman marching camps. And the person who normally leads it wasn't able to come, but we've been there before. And these camps were quite big. One of them was about 30 acres and probably hold about 20,000 soldiers there.
There we are. Is that you guys?
We are walking up there.
So is this behind the village of Myddfai?
It's above, really, much higher up. You access it via the Swansea Valley, really, and head in sort of almost northwest of Brecon.
Completely different.
Yeah, it's a completely different area. Some wild horses up there as well. Yeah, we couldn't resist photographing those.
Because they're kept, actually, to keep the vegetation down, aren't they?
They do, yeah, they do. And it's interesting, we often have new people on the walk, and one of the people there was from Catalonia. Very topical.
Right. Yeah.
And his English was good. He'd been to Swansea several times. And the friend he was staying with normally comes with us, but she wasn't able to walk, so she sent him along and chatting to him. And, of course, you had to talk about Catalonia, and he was very strongly in favour of independence.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's sort of, you meet all sorts of interesting people.
Talk about all sorts of different things.
all sorts of things.
It's all a magic place up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is,
Mountains.
yeah.
Have you been up there?
I have indeed. Yeah. I was saying to Richard earlier that I led a walk there some time ago as well, and there's of course the connection with the physicians of Myddfai.
Wonderful story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and again, going back to plants and herbalism as well, and as well as growing.
Because the interesting thing about the physicians of Myddfai, a farmer about 20 years ago or so ago, I don't know what happened to it, but he started growing herbs in that area on a commercial basis because it's the soil and the microclimate and everything that actually naturally encourages these herbs.
Yeah, Oh, it is, yeah, very much, yeah, and sort of, in the days before we had the synthetic drugs that we can get today, everybody, the herbalist was very high up in the pecking order.
And they particularly grow in that area. Why the story arose.
It was indeed, yeah. But I was saying to Richard, I was leading a walk some time ago again in that area. But there's also a stream which was renowned to have special powers, a bit like spa water, really. Anyway, so I spent quite a lot of time trying to track down this stream, and eventually there was just a little trickle of water. Anyway, so it was quite disappointing after all this effort. So, and it would involve quite a detour as well. So I decided that we won't bother detouring on it. But yes, it is. We're so lucky having such wonderful landscapes out of nearby. Yeah.
Well, it's one thing walking, but I suppose if you're gardening, is it all the year round sort of activity?
It can be, yeah. Sort of, you can make your garden, really sort of as labour intensive or as low maintenance as you want to, really. Obviously this time of the year it's beginning to go into dormancy and to close down, so
what should you be doing now?
Well, the lawns will still grow, so if you because we haven't had any cold weather as yet, so you can still carry on cutting.
Quite lush out there at the moment, isn't it?
It is indeed, so any herbaceous plants you can cut them back now at this time of the year if you wanted to have a nice tidy garden, but it's actually quite good to leave them on there because it will provide some protection to the plants over the winter when we get frost, and also for wildlife as well. Lots of the seed heads and things like that, birds will be able to benefit from those, so there's things like that.
Is there anything you should be protecting with winter coming on?
Yeah, so yes, if you've got borderline hardy plants, then you can either cover them with things like hessians, so things like tree ferns and dahlias and things like that. Some of these ones can, depending on where you are, some places they'll be okay and some places not, but yeah, you can lift them and bring them in sort of, either into a porch or a conservatory or a greenhouse if you're lucky enough to have things like.
Once you've done it all, if all else fails, you can get out on the hills with you guys.
Absolutely.
Or to the coast.
Yeah, well, we're off to Kington this weekend. Just wanted to quickly.
Mid Wales, is it?
It's in Herefordshire. It's right on the border. Offarsdyke.
Yeah.
And the Offarsdyke path runs through Kington, so it's very much a border town. And I'm leading the 2 long walks we're doing, 2 shorter walks. 52 people going, so we've got a lot of people going.
How short is the shorter walk?
6 miles. Over 6 miles.
You call that a short walk?
Yeah.
I saw Offarsdyke for the first time not so long ago, and it's well worth a visit, a walk. Fascinating.
And Hargest Ridge, I'm told it's pronounced Hargest Ridge. I thought it was Hairgest Ridge, just outside Kington. And Mike Oldfield is one of his albums was Hergus Ridge because I think his studio was in that area, in Kington area.
The things you learn. Thank you both. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much for joining us. Very grateful indeed. And thank you really to all our guests for joining us today. And of course, where would we be without you at home joining us and online, tuning in, and we'll see you again tomorrow.